everyone, and welcome to Pittsburgh Now. I'm Chris Moore, the Moore of Pittsburgh. Today we have two exciting guests for you to talk about you and some of the things that you need to do. First of all, you need to be an assertive healthcare advocate for your own self and your family members. Melissa Malamphy joins us. She's a psychologist and patient advocate, author of Not in Vain, A Promise Kept. It is the story of her mother's illness and how she learned to become an assertive healthcare advocate for her mother and her father when they were ill. We'll talk about that with her. In the second half of the show, Florence Ann Romano joins us. She's a personal growth strategist and author of Build Your Village, a guide to finding your joy and community in every stage of life. We're going to talk to her about that because a lot of Americans, as they age and lose their friends, lose contact with their village, and it does not give them a reason to live. How can we reverse that trend? We'll talk to Florence Ann about that in the second half of the show. But first up, how to be a better and more assertive patient advocate for you and your family. That's what's going on today on this edition of Pittsburgh Now. The book is called Not in Vain, A Promise Kept. Melissa Malamphy joins us now to talk about her personal journey through healthcare with her mother's cancer diagnosis and what she had to learn about being an assertive healthcare advocate. Welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
All right. First of all, can you tell us about your mother's diagnosis, how it was received, and how you learned to be more assertive about her care?
I really wasn't given a choice. My mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in May of 2010. We never thought that she had cancer. We kind of found out the hard way from an emergency room visit. Ovarian cancer is often overlooked. And it was an 8-month battle that my mom had, and my family and I had to learn the hard way on how to advocate for her. Which I try and share in my book. Every chapter is the month in my mother's journey, and I end each chapter with what we learned, what I would do differently, and what I learned the hard way.
Well, what did you learn the hard way?
I learned the hard way that I think that in 2010, all healthcare providers go into healthcare with for the right reasons. They're all caring. It's a big sacrifice that they do for school, but like everyone else, they're human and they make errors. And we learn that the hard way from things as one might say as benign as reading an x-ray wrong to there was a time when she was hospitalized in the cardiology unit where she actually had the wrong patient bracelet on. So her bracelet had another patient's name on it. Your bracelet that you wear is your hospital ID with a barcode that has all of your meds, your diagnosis, what's next, your medical file, and thankfully I got that changed. There was a lot of misdiagnosis. When they did the original biopsy, they did not actually get to the tumor. They biopsied the fluid that surrounds the tumor that's called ascites, and because of that, she was given chemo that would have never touched or had an impact on the type of cancer that she had. I learned that afterwards when I went to a genetic counselor. She had a rare form of ovarian. It was a sarcoma type that was not, it did not work with the normal platinum-based chemotherapy.
Well, do you think that your mother passed away because of the wrong treatment that she had and the misdiagnosis, and you didn't catch that until after?
No, my mom had a very aggressive form of cancer. In fact, she had 4 types of cancer, excuse me. So she was very ill. Do I think she would have survived it if she were in another facility? Possibly. However, if we had gotten the right biopsy when she was first diagnosed, they would have given her a different treatment approach, and maybe she would have survived. My problem in the reason for writing the book was because of medical errors, because of things being misdiagnosed, underlooked, mistakes make. She suffered. And because she suffered, we suffered. And so with that, I needed to tell her story. I made a promise to her one night in the hospital when she was there very late at night that I would share her story with the world to try and prevent it from happening to other people.
Well, what about your personal health care? Is this something that might be hereditary? Have you learned something about how you're going to approach doctors and the healthcare system now for yourself?
Yes, sir. Because my mother's ovarian was rare, I wound up getting a complete hysterectomy in 2015. While it was rare, I do not want to go through what she went through, and so I proactively did that. I also do a lot with organizations for ovarian cancer as far as fundraising, and I spoke to some senators a couple weeks ago, trying to get bills pushed to help with early diagnosis. But as far as how I go to doctors, I am more prepared. I have a bunch of autoimmune stuff. So, some of the things that I try and do is keep a journal. So, in that 10-minute time frame, I'm able to give them more facts than, try and remember and guess and where and how bad and what makes things worse and stuff like that. And these are all things that I try and share with my readers and my users on my website to how to proactively go to a doctor's appointment to get the best value out of it.
It really sounds like you have to be assertive and, as you said, keep notes so that when you're there with the doctor, the limited time that you have 10 questions for them and you got to get them all out and make that doctor stay there and answer them.
It's very important. The other thing is, there's a lot of people that go to multiple doctors. So if you go to multiple doctors, you might have gone, I've done it, you might have gone to 3 doctors for the same thing. Another doctor may have run labs and maybe did some x-rays and, CAT scans. You're going to want to bring that information to the new doctor because otherwise they're going to reorder all those tests, which might not be necessary. You might be able to get to your diagnosis earlier if you come better prepared. That better prepare if it's a person that maybe is not in the emotional ability to listen, have somebody with you to help you navigate and listen and ask the questions for you. The other thing is knowing your medications, knowing labs or tests that you've had already. All of these things can help you get to a diagnosis earlier.
April is Healthcare Awareness Month, and I read that 41% of all Americans have some sort of unpaid medical debt. How can being an assertive healthcare patient help you deal with the debt that you incur too? You mentioned those extra tests and all of that.
It's a big deal. I'm very lucky. I have very good health insurance. However, most people don't. I did some researching on my own last week on the Affordable Care Act and got some policies priced out for me, even though I don't need it, because I wanted to see, the pricing and a lot of people, when they get their insurance, they only think about things like monthly premium and deductibles and copays, but there's so much more to that. And a lot of people need to really sit down with their brokers or whoever's selling them the insurance and read all the fine print like catastrophic caps, fine print like, emergency room, ICU benefits, physical therapy or mental health. There's sometimes caps on that. It's very important that if you're buying an insurance policy that you read all the fine print. Nobody likes to do it, but it's very important. It's no different than, being able to understand your auto policy. As far as having debt, if you're a cash payer, if you're an uninsured person, there's a lot of times that you can work with the hospital facility, and I'm just making numbers up. Say you have a $20,000 bill because you got into a car accident, you were in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. That's a lot of money. That's life-changing money for some people. A lot of times, in my experience, and I did this with my mother, if you write a note to the accounts receivable people of the hospital facility and you tell them, why this happened, or would you be willing to write off some of it? In my experience, 90% of the time they will write down cash payers.
Boy, that says something about what the costs really are and how they depend on insurance. Do you think that we need a national health care insurance program, a form of Medicare for everyone? Would that alleviate some of these problems?
You know, I worked in the reinsurance industry for 20 years, so I worked in the property casualty side, but I do know, healthcare is very similar. Life health is very similar. To have everyone to have the same insurance, it sounds great, but it is very complex. And this is the example I give to people. I have Aetna, for example, and I'm very fortunate with my insurance. You could have Aetna and your insurance, every company, every school, every employer, they determine what their contract is. So it's very complex. So, I could be charged, my insurance, I could go get an MRI and they could charge $700 and I have to pay $15. You could go to the same MRI place and they could charge you $2,000 and you have to pay $1,000. So it's so complex. So in a perfect world, yes, everybody should have health care. But if you look at countries like Canada, the UK, and other countries, sometimes the universal health care creates a long waiting system in the pipeline. So I've seen this, especially since I wrote my book. I talked to a lot of people that are ill all over the world, and some of them have to wait 6 months to go see their oncologist. COVID has created a backlog of people with to get annual checkups. So a lot of people are coming to doctors and they're staged out because we've been like 2 years in like a holding point. So everybody having health care, we should be able to do it. The things that make me nervous is, that wait. Like my dad just passed away at the end of December. We are almost 3 years out of COVID, right? And it was not a good experience. In fact, I thought things got better since 2010, since my mom passed away. I can tell you with 100% certainty, they did not. There were things missed, there were mistakes made, and I was there, and I'm very assertive. And there were things that were beyond my control because doctors didn't put in orders, and it wasn't a good story.
Well, Melissa, we have 1 minute left. What would you like to see done to make this better for people who are suffering with, especially with catastrophic illnesses like your mother?
We need to have the hospital administrators, the people that run hospitals, do better with their employees as far as work-life balances, pay them fair wages, not be understaffed, continuing education, and hold them accountable when they make mistakes. If they make mistakes, they need to be held accountable. Doesn't mean you have to terminate them, but they need to know that they made a mistake and they need to be held accountable. And if you have a loved one that has been the victim of a medical mistake or, God forbid, wrongful death, you need to let the hospital know, because I can tell you a lot of times these things are not ever made aware of. Do you
think your mother's death was wrongful? Did you sue?
No, I don't think.
Okay.
I think my mom was very sick. My dad passing away, he suffered and he shouldn't have suffered. We put palliative care on notice on a Tuesday. They didn't come with the correct comfort meds until 10 o'clock Friday morning.
Wow.
So that's 72 hours of suffering.
All right.
And I was there.
We're out of time. The book is called Not in Vain, A Promise Kept, and Melissa Melanthe is the author. Thank you very much for your time and your relaying of the personal story and what people need to do to avoid the kinds of problems you dealt with. Thank you very much, Melissa.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about your village and you.